brilliant to look upon and to listen to, with the power to subjugate everyone. That was how Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, was described. A woman of extraordinary intelligence, charm and beauty. She could have had anything or anyone she desired. But the man who captivated her heart was not an Egyptian noble, nor a god-king. It was Mark Antony, one of Rome's greatest generals. Their love story is one of the most passionate and tragic in history, a tale of power, betrayal, war, and ultimately death. It was in the year 41 BC when Cleopatra and Mark Antony first met in the ancient city of Tarsus. Antony had summoned her, expecting a submissive queen, but Cleopatra, as always, played by her own rules. She arrived on a magnificent golden barge, its sails purple, its oars silver. She lay beneath a canopy, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, surrounded by attendants dressed as nymphs. Perfume filled the air, so intoxicating that the people of Tarsus rushed to see this divine vision. Antony, a man known for his own theatricality and love of pleasure, was mesmerized. That night, Cleopatra did not beg for his favor. She entertained him. She laughed with him, drank with him, challenged him. And Antony, who had conquered kingdoms, found himself conquered by a woman. Their affair burned with an intensity that shocked the world. Cleopatra invited Antony to Egypt, and he followed, abandoning his Roman duties to live a life of luxury by her side. They hunted together, feasted for days, and created their own private society, calling themselves the inimitable livers. Antony, always a warrior at heart, began to see himself not as a Roman senator, but as an Eastern king, a ruler alongside Cleopatra. He gave her lands, titles, and even declared their children as heirs to great territories. But Rome would not tolerate this. Octavian, the ambitious nephew of Julius Caesar, saw Antony as a traitor. The Senate declared war not just on Antony, but on Cleopatra herself. The decisive moment came in 31 BC at the Battle of Actium. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet faced off against Octavian's forces in a battle that would determine the fate of the empire. But in the midst of the chaos, Cleopatra's ship turned and fled. Was it a tactical retreat? Was she afraid? Did Antony think she had betrayed him? No one knows for certain. What is known is that Antony, unable to bear the thought of losing her, abandoned his own fleet and followed her. It was a disastrous decision. Their forces crumbled and Octavian claimed victory. Defeated and hunted, Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt. They had lost their armies, their allies, their empire. Believing Cleopatra had taken her own life, Antony fell on his own sword. As he lay dying, he learned the truth. Cleopatra still lived. With his last strength, he had himself carried to her, dying in her arms. Cleopatra, now a prisoner of Rome, faced a grim future. She would be paraded through the streets as a trophy, humiliated before the world. That she could not allow. Determined to die on her own terms, she arranged for a deadly asp, an Egyptian cobra, to be smuggled into her chamber. She pressed it to her breast, welcoming death. "I will not be triumphed over," she whispered as the venom took hold. And so ended one of history's greatest love stories. Cleopatra and Antony, rulers of lands and hearts, chose death over dishonor. Their love had defied empires, but in the end, it could not defy fate. Octavian took Egypt, and Rome became an empire under his rule. But the story of Antony and Cleopatra lived on, retold by poets, playwrights, and historians. Was it true love or a union of ambition? Were they reckless or merely doomed by destiny? Perhaps we will never truly know. But one thing is certain, their love, like the Nile itself, remains eternal.